I never thought I'd be the person to stand up at my own brother's engagement party and intentionally humiliate my parents. But when they spent 3 hours using me as the punchline of every joke, while sipping on a wine they called cheap swill, I realized that being the bigger person was just a fancy way of saying I was a doormat. I looked my father dead in the eyes, while the entire room of high society guests went silent, and I told him that the bottle he just compared to battery acid actually cost $15,000 and was a gift from the firm he's been trying to get an internship at for my brother for 3 years. Was I wrong for choosing that specific moment to burn every bridge I had with my family? Or would you have sat there and taken the insults just to keep the peace? Let me know what you think, because after 25 years of being the disappointment, I finally decided to give them a reason to actually be disappointed. To understand why I did what I did, you have to understand the dynamic of the Miller family. My parents, Robert and Diane, are obsessed with optics. They live in a world of country club memberships, imported leather, and who you know, networking. Then there's my younger brother, Leo. Leo is the golden child. He's charming, he's handsome, and he followed exactly in our father's footsteps into corporate law. Or at least, he's trying to. I, on the other hand, am the black sheep. I didn't want the law firm life. I had a passion for viticulture and the business side of the wine industry. To my parents, that meant I was a fancy bartender or a liquor store clerk. No matter how many times I explained that I work as a high-level consultant for one of the most prestigious auction houses in the world, they never listened. To them, if you aren't wearing a suit and billing by the hour, you're failing at life. The tension has been building for years, but it reached a boiling point when Leo got engaged to his girlfriend, Chloe. Chloe comes from a very wealthy, very traditional family, and my parents were desperate to impress them. For months leading up to the engagement party, I was sidelined. My mother would call me just to tell me not to wear whatever it is you wear to those vineyards, and to make sure I didn't talk too much about my work because it might make Leo look bad. It was insulting, but I loved my brother, so I agreed to help in the one way I knew how. Leo called me 2 weeks before the party, sounding panicked. He knew our father was planning on serving some generic, mid-tier champagne he'd bought in bulk, and Leo wanted something truly special to impress Chloe's father, who is a massive wine collector. I told Leo I had it covered. I reached out to a contact of mine and secured 3 bottles of a legendary 1945 vintage from a private collection. These weren't just bottles of wine, they were liquid history. I spent my own money, a significant amount, to ensure my brother's night was perfect. The night of the party arrived at my parents' estate. The house was decorated with thousands of dollars worth of lilies, and the guest list was a who's who of the local elite. I arrived early with the wine, carefully decanting it and ensuring it was served at the perfect temperature. I didn't want any credit, I just wanted to contribute. But the second I walked into the kitchen, my mother looked at me with a sneer. She told me to stay in the corner and not bother the important guests. As the night went on, the wine was served. I watched from the sidelines as Chloe's father took a sip, and his eyes nearly popped out of his head. He knew exactly what it was. But my father, who thinks he knows everything about everything, decided this was the perfect time to start his usual routine of tearing me down to make himself look superior. He stood up for a toast, holding his glass of the $15,000 wine, and started telling a funny story about how I once tried to explain soil pH levels to him. He laughed, calling my career a cute little hobby, and then he made a face at the wine in his glass. He told the whole room, "You can tell my eldest son picked the wine tonight. It's a bit sour, isn't it? Just like his attitude toward hard work. We should have just let the caterers handle it, instead of letting a hobbyist play sommelier." The room erupted in polite, awkward laughter. My mother chimed in, saying she hoped Leo's marriage wouldn't be as unstructured as my career path. I felt the heat rising in my neck. I looked at Leo, hoping he'd say something, but he just looked at his plate. He knew what that wine was, and he knew what it cost, but he stayed silent to stay in our father's good graces. I was standing there, having provided the single most expensive and rare item in that room, being mocked for being cheap and unsuccessful by the people who were literally consuming my hard-earned gift. So that's the situation I was in. I had spent thousands of dollars and used every professional connection I had to make them look good, and in return, they used me as a verbal punching bag to entertain their friends. I had to make a choice. Do I stay quiet and let them have their moment, or do I blow the whole thing up? Before I tell you what happened next and how the rest of the night spiraled into absolute chaos, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have kept the peace for your brother's sake, or would you have set the record straight right then and there? I didn't wait for the laughter to die down. I stood up slowly, and I didn't look at my mother or my brother. I looked straight at my father. I asked him, "Dad, you think the wine is sour? You think it's cheap swill that a hobbyist picked out?" He looked annoyed that I was interrupting his performance. He said, "Well, it certainly doesn't have the body of a real vintage, but we appreciate the effort, son." I smiled, and it wasn't a friendly smile. I turned to Chloe's father, Mr. Sterling, and asked, "Mr. Sterling, you're a collector. What's your professional opinion on the bottle?" Mr. Sterling looked extremely uncomfortable, looking between me and my father, before he cleared his throat and said, "Robert, if this is the bottle I think it is, it's a 1945 Romanée Conti. It's one of the rarest wines in existence." The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the marble floor. My father's face went from smug to confused. I didn't stop there. I told the entire room, "Actually, Mr. Sterling is right. Those 3 bottles on the table cost $15,000 each. I didn't get them at a grocery store. I got them through my firm. Firm, by the way, that Dad has been begging me to get Leo an interview with for the last 6 months. The same firm that Dad just called a cute little hobby." I watched the color drain from my father's face. My mother tried to interrupt, but I talked right over her. I told them that since they clearly didn't enjoy the sour taste of my success, I'd be happy to take the remaining unopened bottle home with me. I walked over to the head table, picked up the last bottle, and told my brother, "Congratulations on the engagement, Leo. It's a shame you didn't have the backbone to tell them what you were drinking." The aftermath was a total explosion. My father tried to corner me in the hallway, shouting that I had embarrassed him in front of his future in-laws. I told him he had embarrassed himself by being a snob who couldn't even recognize the quality he pretended to possess. Mr. Sterling, apparently unimpressed by my father's behavior, ended up leaving the party early with his daughter. The engagement isn't off, but the relationship between the families is incredibly strained now because my father looks like a fool. My mother has sent me dozens of texts calling me selfish and spiteful, saying I ruined the most important night of Leo's life. But honestly, I've never felt lighter. I realized that no matter how much I achieved, they were always going to look down on me to feel better about themselves. By revealing the truth about the wine, I didn't just defend my career. I exposed their hypocrisy for everyone to see. I haven't spoken to them since that night, and I don't plan to. I've spent my life trying to earn the respect of people who don't even respect themselves enough to be honest. Looking back, I realize that some people will never see your value, no matter how much you bring to the table. They'd rather call a diamond a piece of glass than admit you were the one who found it. I lost my family that night, but I gained my self-respect, and to me, that's worth way more than $15,000. Like this video if you were on my side and think my parents got exactly what they deserved. Subscribe for more stories like this where the underdog finally wins, and make sure to share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I go too far? Or was it the perfect revenge? I'll see you all in the next story.